I have always secretly considered myself a philosopher, even though I didn't actually start reading philosophy until I was in my 20s. I mean, why should I need to read philosophy? I have a brain of my own. I can work things out for myself. There's no greater joy in life than eureka, that I have found it moment when you figured something out all for yourself. It doesn't matter if you're the first person or if you're the billionth person. If you come to a realization by relying only on your own logic, knowledge, and experience, then your discovery is as genuine as any other. Go ahead and look up the word discover in the dictionary. It means to find something for the first time, not to be the first person to find something for the first time. This is why exploration is not and never will be a thing of the past. Not because there will always be more and more new discoveries to make, although this is likely, but because there will always be more and more information out there that you have yet to discover for yourself. As long as I can remember, and I can remember being 2 years old, this idea has been a core feature of how I observe the world. To me, it's almost as if the things I know about don't exist until I know about them. Now, I can reason without much effort, this is false. It would be ridiculous to be genuinely convinced of such a notion, but no matter how I try, I simply cannot shake the feeling that the world around me is actively expanding as I come to know more about it. Now, I'm perfectly aware this philosophical question dates back as far as philosophy itself. If a tree falls in the woods and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound? Yeah, okay, cute. Simulation theory is interesting, despite its total lack of practical application. So, what if we really do live in a reality of our own creation, or one of someone else's? I mean, what difference would it make either way? The answer is that it wouldn't. My life was the same before, during, and after I learned algebra. Why should it be any different when it comes to the nature of our existence? Well, I suppose it comes down to the fact that I simply want to know. In the movie The Truman Show, the audience learns that our main character has spent his entire life in a simulation. Every experience he has ever had was put there for him to see. His friends, his family, and all the people of his town are paid actors. The entire town itself and all the surrounding land and sea are one giant television studio that streams a 24/7 broadcast of his life to the world. Only at the end of the film does our hero finally catch on. But there is a difference between him and us. He can escape. We cannot. So maybe I don't actually want to know. I mean, even if our entire universe is a simulation, as best as I can tell, we'd still be trapped in it. Perhaps being blissfully unaware is a better alternative than dealing with a harsh reality. Then why discover? I mean, after all, once you learn about something, you're not necessarily any better off than you were before. Has learning about Middle Eastern history or the Christian religion or the languages of Asia freed me of the need for food, water, shelter, sleep? Are biological imperatives any different of a prison than a simulated reality? Well, let's address those separately. Why discover? Well, I don't know about how you feel, but I cannot deprive myself of eureka. The pleasure is, of course, like all pleasures, fleeting and cruelly temporary. But there is another kind of happiness that comes from knowledge. The Japanese actually have two different words for happiness. Ureishi is the happiness you feel now, but shiawase is the ideal. A sort of peace, a long-lasting feeling of satisfaction that can only be achieved through years of work and sacrifice. It is how the souls in heaven are said to feel. The key here is wisdom. Wisdom is knowledge and experience combined to give one the best basis for decision-making. You never know when something you learn may prove useful, so there's no harm in learning as much as you desire. But will knowledge free you of your basic human needs? Well, some may actually claim so, but I have yet to be convinced. No one has gone more than a few months without eating, or more than 12 days without sleeping, or heck, more than a half hour without breathing. We desire satiation. In my 10th grade biology class, I learned about homeostasis. It's the steady state of internal physical and chemical conditions made by living systems. That's Wikipedia's definition. To put it a little more plainly, it's an ideal set of conditions all living things seek to achieve and maintain, like body temperature and things like that. These conditions are like the gauges on manufacturing equipment. All our eating, drinking, sleeping, shelter seeking is just meant to steady them. Being aware of homeostasis has actually allowed me on occasion to psychologically ignore these demands when the desire to eat or sleep less arises, a useful tool for a poor college student. Nevertheless, I still had to eat and sleep eventually. Therefore, knowledge cannot truly free you. The truth will set you free is only half true. You might say, the truth will ease your suffering. Suffering? Yes. At last I have arrived at the heart of the discussion. We seem to be made to suffer. It is our lot in life, said C-3PO to R2-D2. And he had a point. Every religion I've looked into seems to agree that life is mostly suffering, pain, and misery. It is the fundamental teaching of Buddhism. But you don't have to travel to the Orient to find monks familiar with the matter. Crack open the best-selling book in human history, the Christian Bible. Turn to Ecclesiastes. I'm not kidding. Whether or not you're religious, the book of Ecclesiastes, written 3,000 years ago, is exceptionally brilliant and perceptive. Even when I was a staunch atheist and anti-theist, I sought its wisdom. The 1965 hit song Turn, Turn, Turn by the Byrds uses the third chapter of the book as lyrics, which is how I discovered it. Now, reading this book inspires a feeling that is opposite but complementary to Eureka. It's not, I have found it, but I have known it. It's that feeling you get when you read something you've never read before, and yet you find the author has reached the same conclusions you've already come to yourself, only they're saying it as well as you could ever hope of saying something. That feeling is why I started reading philosophy. But please, allow me to read the first chapter of Ecclesiastes.
Israel. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king of Israel in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What advantage does a man have in all his labor in which he toils under the sun? A generation comes and a generation goes, but the earth stands forever. The sun rises and the sun sets and returns to its place. The wind rises and goes towards the south and swirls towards the north. The wind whirls in a circular motion and returns full circle. All the rivers flow to the sea, yet the sea shall not be filled. To the place where the rivers flow, there they return again. All words are wearisome, and a man will not be able to say them. Neither will the eye be satisfied with seeing, nor the ear be filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. Who will speak and say, see, this is new? For it has already been in the ages that have passed before us. There is no remembrance of former things, and indeed, there shall be no remembrance of later things by the things that will come after that. I, the preacher, was king over Israel and Jerusalem. I gave my heart to seek out and to prepare myself in wisdom concerning all things done under heaven. For God has given painful distraction to the sons of men to be occupied therewith. I beheld all the works done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and is the choice of one's spirit. That which has been crooked cannot be made straight, and that which is lacking cannot be counted. I spoke in my heart, saying, behold, I have become great and have acquired wisdom beyond all before me in Jerusalem, and my heart has experienced much wisdom and knowledge. I gave my heart to know wisdom and knowledge, to learn proverbs and understanding, and this too was waywardness of spirit. For in the abundance of wisdom there is abundance of knowledge, and he who increases knowledge will increase suffering. That's just the first chapter. It gets heavier.
What the hell? I thought. sitting in my college dorm room on a hot spring afternoon in 2015. This is downright nihilism. Religious people are always talking about how much meaning their faith gives to their life, but here is King David himself telling us how useless existence is. I lost my faith in Christ when I was 17, and by 19 I had come to realize it. Yet there I was at age 20, fully unconvinced of the Bible's wisdom, tearing through this book, reading as quickly as I could, as if my life depended on it. Ultimately, this rather dark book of the Bible ends on a strange note. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole man. For God will bring every work into judgment, including everything that has been overlooked, whether it be good or evil. So that's the message of the book. Life really is pointless. Surrender yourself to God. Let him sort the whole mess out. Needless to say, this wasn't what I wanted to hear. I turned instead to the college library. Instead of attending classes, I read. Anything existentialist or nihilist, Nietzsche, Sartre, anything anti-religious, from Bertrand Russell's Why I Am Not a Christian to T.J. Kirk's Douchebag Bible. I developed my cheerful nihilist identity, piecing together thoughts from everywhere I could find. Even serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer offered insight. For billions of years before you were born, you didn't exist. For billions of years after you die, you won't exist. Life is but a brief interruption in your non-existence. Thanks, Jeffrey. And by the way, that's not actually a direct quote. I'm just paraphrasing from a documentary I saw about Dahmer. At last, I had my eureka. While it is true that life ultimately serves no purpose, that is no reason to despair. If it doesn't matter anyway, you might as well enjoy yourself and spend what little time you have left doing what you want to do. I conquered my existential crisis. I wrote this song to celebrate.
Life is when you're trying to escape your pain, but you can't grow flowers if you don't let it rain. And if I break down again, call me insane, but you'd do it too if you walked in my shoes. But what does it matter if you will or you won't? You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, 'cause no matter who you are, you're still gonna die. Pull up a chair, sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Maybe I'll play more of that song later.
At age 21, I had it all figured out. The only thing that would change this is time and politics. I will admit to being a political junkie, but despite my obsession with politics, I don't actually take it seriously. It's no different to me than watching sports or movies. I've yet to see my life actually personally impacted by the bread and circus that we find smeared on our screens when, in an all-too common moment of weakness, we fall for clickbait news headlines and video titles. Now, I cannot disguise my disdain for news media, nor my appetite for political debate. However, I must recognize that one cannot exist without the other. Both are there for the same reason, to act as dog and pony shows to distract us from what's really going on and who's really running things. Now, I've already covered my political transition phase and what I believe, so I won't get into it now, but I do want to lay some big ideas on you guys here. When it comes to politics, everybody is right and everybody is wrong. Communists are right. The world would be a better place if we could all live in peace, not fighting over each other's possessions, but that isn't how the world is. Socialists are right. Corporations do run the world. But they're wrong for trying to mitigate this with massive government spending, and you know what? There's just too many reasons to list here. Liberals are right. A freer, more open society will lead to more opportunities for everyone. But they're wrong because there's no end goal. They always push and push until the point where they abandon the very ideas that got them started. The libertarians have a good mix going with capitalism, liberty, but it might be too late at this point to tear down the mighty leviathan of big government. Conservatives are right. We are losing the parts of our nation's heritage that we need to protect the most. But they're wrong because they never stand up for what they claim to believe in, and they're always ultimately giving in. But a conservative who does stand for what he believes in, does not give in, and takes it to its logical extreme, is a fascist. Apparently, it's not good to be one of those. Perhaps the best and the worst is the anarchist who rejects the whole mess entirely. But they seem to be the only ones who realize that, yes, in fact, we are all slaves. Slaves to what? Slaves to whom? Well, that depends on where you are and how you live. If you pay property tax or deal with eminent domain, you don't own your own land. If they take, say, 20% of your income before you even look at your paycheck, you're working 1 day a week as a slave for the government, who will ask for even more at the end of the year, and then give you a return as if it was their money all along. Well, really, I guess it is their money. Actually, it's not. It's the Federal Reserve's money. Actually, it's not even really money. It has no real world equivalent value. It's just as much as they say it is. Real or not, they tell you how to spend the money they allow you to have. You can't buy unpasteurized milk. You can't take drugs that aren't tested. You can't get an education without them. You can't do what you want with your own land. If you save, they punish you with inflation. If you spend, you need loans. If you take a loan, they take a piece and do a background check. And if you don't like it, well, you can move to any other country in the world. They'll treat you the same, probably worse. When I was in high school, I saw this conspiracy video that alleged that the nations of the world are actually human farms. I didn't know what the heck this guy was talking about. I think I just laughed about it, but I think I might get it now. I mean, I've seen more videos by this guy lately, and he seems to know what he's talking about. His name's like Stephen Molinex or something. Also, honestly, big corporations are not different from big governments. They get in bed with politicians, they write the rules under which we live so they can edge out their competitors, make more money. This is decidedly anti-capitalist cronyism. It's about as far removed from the free market as Red China. More government regulation will not solve the issue because government regulation is precisely what caused the issue. As Bob Dylan said in his song, "Serve somebody." You're going to have to serve someone. It may be the devil, it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. However, you anarchists, minarchists, libertarians of the left and right, do not take so much satisfaction in your superiority, because these sorts of people, especially anarchists, the most delusional of all, fail spectacularly to make the most important realization as it relates to human society: hierarchy. It's natural, it's inseparable and essential, not even just to human society, but to every animal society. Charles Darwin's theory of evolution seals the deal on this one. Some members of a given species will do better than others. They will have an advantage in passing on their genes, and those genes will come to dominate the species as it continues to naturally evolve and take on new and more useful attributes. Now, this is how life works, following this simple logic I put together. Number 1, every organism wants to pass on its genes. Life seeks to perpetuate itself. Number 2, every organism is different from every other organism. Perfect copies cannot be practically reproduced. Number 3, every organism will have different experiences, whether through merit of genes, the whims of chance. Some will succeed and reproduce, others will fail. Number 4, humans are no different from any other organism. Some will reproduce, some will not. Some will live long, happy lives, many will not. Number 5, similarly, humans seek resources to help them towards the end of reproducing, just as a hermit crab seeks a shell and a lamprey seeks a shark. Number 6, humans will pass on the resources they acquire after they die to their offspring, just as they did with their genes. Number 7, every human stands a better chance of surviving and passing on their genes if they cooperate and pool their resources. This is a society. Number 8, successful human societies will gather an abundance of resources to enable them to survive during times when resources are scarce. Number 9, in the course of the collection and use of these resources, disputes will arise, and some humans will desire what other humans already have. Number 10, in order to resolve these disputes, someone will have to take charge. Congratulations. you have achieved a basic hierarchy through nothing more than cold, unfeeling logic. Logic that is about as airtight as it gets, if I may say so myself. Every single human society that has ever been observed has followed those steps. Now, additionally, some societies may continue to progress further. As the success of society increases, the number of humans will increase, meaning the need for resources will increase. Society will grow more complex as the result of this need for additional resources. Now, as a result of this, labor will become more specialized. Hierarchies will grow more complex as the need arises to resolve more disputes and manage more affairs. Now, I intentionally ended the logic at the beginnings of the formation of hierarchy rather than extending it through additional stages of increasing complexity, as would have been done in the 19th century when the discipline of anthropology came into being. Now, I've done so because the mid-20th century brought a new perspective to the field, motivated by postmodernist ideas that rejected simple, linear cultural evolution in favor of a more complex, nuanced approach. This approach, cultural relativism, was introduced for a myriad of reasons, but principally for the purpose of removing Western cultural biases from the analysis of newly contacted peoples from around the world. Now, believe it or not, I neither wholly agree nor disagree with the use of cultural relativism. I actually studied anthropology for a short time in college, and as a tool, it is useful. Going into the study of a foreign culture with a preconceived mindset that yours is better than theirs, it necessarily will color your analysis. It can dull your curiosity and cause you to fail to appreciate the many interesting features of a culture you might have otherwise found enlightening. However, once you complete your analysis, that is when it is time to throw that relativism away. You absolutely can and should make your own determinations about what cultures or aspects of culture you embrace and reject. First, seek understanding. Second, pass judgment. Not one or the other or the opposite order. Only seek understanding, then pass judgment. This will give you the greatest benefit of your education. So, with that tangent aside, let us return to hierarchy. I will not argue that it is the best, but only that that is how things are. I certainly will not argue that hierarchy is bad, as many would. Am I saying that just because it's natural, it's not bad? Not at all. There are so many naturally occurring phenomena that are harmful to humans, it's unnecessary to attempt to list them. In fact, the list of beneficial natural phenomena is far shorter. Hierarchy, however, is in a different class altogether, for the simple fact that it is not something separable or outside of humanity. It is instead something intrinsic and inseparable. Therefore, if hierarchy is bad, then humanity is bad, and I choose not to make such a judgment call. Man is neither good nor evil. Man simply is. Sure, men can commit good and evil actions, but it is the man who makes the actions, not the actions that make the man. Now, how do I determine whether an act is good or bad? Philosophers have wrestled with definitions of good and evil for millennia, but, I could start off the section like that, but let's just get to the point. The NAP. Look, I'm sorry, but seriously, why do so many people crap all over the NAP, the non-aggression principle? Basically, just the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. More accurately, don't frick with me and I won't frick with you. Everybody gets to do as they please as long as they don't prevent others from doing as they please. You make an agreement, you follow through on it. You don't start aggression with someone unless you're prepared for retaliation. These are fundamentally good ideas. Yeah, I'm well aware people have thought of thousands of situations where you might be best advised to begin aggression, or you might not follow through on a contract and so on. But to me, the NAP is never really a hard and fast rule, more of a guideline. You have to have some kind of universal framework for morality, right? Right? Well, look, the truth is, and I'm just going to come right out and say it, morality is subjective. What is considered right and wrong absolutely changes wherever, whenever, whomever you are. Religion has long offered humanity a source of moral teaching, but their adherents are inconsistent at best and corrupt at worst. This is one of the reasons why Jews, Christians, Muslims, Hindus, just to name a few, put such a heavy emphasis on the written word. Spoken interpretations may alter, but the word is forever. But what difference does that actually make when you live by the interpretation and not the actual word anyway? Sure, you can reject religion altogether and try to find or create your own philosophy, as I have, but at the end of the day, you're no better off than you were when you started. All is vanity. All is vanity. You know what, Ecclesiastes? You're darn right. Whether I'm right or wrong, does it actually matter? Is this not just my own vanity that fools me into thinking I can figure everything out? But isn't everybody like this? Yes, everybody is like this. Nobody likes to admit that they're wrong. We all have a shell of ego that protects us from having to face our own insecurities. I would theorize that this is probably an evolutionary advantage. Certainly, the more confident of our ancestors would have outbred the more emotionally fragile. Then why is there a crisis of confidence in the modern first world? We are the cleanest, healthiest, least hardworking people of all time. Why are births down and suicides up? Some blame religion or lack thereof. Some blame postmodernism. Some cite a particular demographic as the source of their woes. Some blame their political opponents. All of these people are right, and all of them are wrong. This is what I call man's crisis of identity in the former half of the 21st century. This is a somewhat obscure reference to a Monty Python episode with a similar name. But it seems to me as if, just like me in 2015, all of the Western world read Ecclesiastes and took it to heart, but rejected the message at the end. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole man. For God will bring every work into judgment, including everything that has been overlooked, whether it be good or evil. Now wait, am I seriously going to defend religion? Well, you have to wait and see. First, let me explain what I mean. One could broadly place the history of human thought into three distinct sections. I actually saw this broken down in a YouTube comment, and I find it quite apt. First, pre-modern thought, which lasts from prehistory to the Enlightenment. Absolute truth comes from God. Second, the modern thought, which lasts from the Enlightenment to the 20th century. Absolute truth can be discovered by man. Thirdly, you have the postmodern thought, which is from the mid-20th century to today. There is no absolute truth. Now, these are generalizations, but, I think they kind of capture it pretty well. Today, we can still see people who live their lives in one of these three ways. Many people transition from one frame of thought to the other and back again throughout their lives several times. Undoubtedly, I was a modern thinker who turned postmodern in high school and went back to modern in college, but since I've graduated, I might have accidentally overshot the mark and went back to pre-modern. But again, I'm off topic. The point here is that a human being needs a source of meaning in their lives. I would even conjecture that this is the reason that religion exists. If not, the actual existence of God. But I think it's reasonable to suggest that in order to provide the necessary cohesion that was missing from prehistoric societies, religions came about probably naturally as a way to explain or justify why people should behave a certain way and not another. Religion is very probably an evolutionary adaptation, which is a funny thing to say, but after all, it's not like Nietzsche just came up with the idea that life is purposeless. It's in the frickin' Bible. People have always known that what they do will ultimately amount to nothing. They exist to perpetuate their own species. I mean, this is the meaning of life. I discovered it when I was 12. So it's not really that exciting, We want to believe that there's something more. Well, I'm here with the answer. I don't know. You don't know either, but you can't dismiss God as an explanation, nor can you blindly accept God as a cover-all for life's mysteries. At some point, I think humanity realized this. It was a slow and arduous process, happened in Europe, first from the Renaissance and then the Enlightenment. Maybe it was the plagues, the Reformation, the printing press. Maybe it was the new art and music. Maybe it was the discovery of the new world. Maybe the fact you could now read the Bible in your native tongue, come to your own understanding of it. Maybe it was the new sciences like chemistry, geology, biology. Maybe it was the rationalist philosophers or the empiricists. Maybe it was the agricultural and industrial revolutions or new ideas like liberty and nationalism and modern democracy. Who knows why it really happened? But there was something in the water because these men created a new mindset, one called progress. At last, we have reached my final portion. Progress. What is progress? Progress is a myth. Not in the wacky postmodern sense, like all cultures are equally advanced, but some are more advanced than others, but really we're just different, but deep down we're all really the same. I mean that humanity can and will wax and wane in its greatness, just as the pre-modern people have always understood, and that the notion that things are getting better all the time will continue to do so is a relatively modern contrivance. Oh, but Willy, don't you prefer to live in the modern world? Well, I don't know. Does a fish like to live in water? Of course I'm glad I'm alive right now. But you can be damn sure I wouldn't choose to live 1,000 years from now. Who knows what the hell that'll be like? Nor would I bring someone from 1,000 years ago and ask them to live today. They'd be so confused they'd kill themselves. I'm not saying I miss the good old days. By the way, the good old days are actually frowned upon in Ecclesiastes. But I am saying that newer doesn't equal better. There is an excellent movie. All you need to watch it. It's called Inherit the Wind. It's about the Scopes monkey trial, which, to put it briefly, is a court case back in the 1920s in Tennessee about whether a teacher should teach evolution in a public school. Anyways, in the movie, the defense lawyer for the teacher gives this awesome speech where he says, "Progress has never been a bargain. You have to pay for it. Sometimes I think there's a man who sits behind a counter and says, 'All right, you can have the telephone, but you lose privacy and the charm of distance. Madam, you may vote, but at a price. You lose the right to retreat behind the powder puff of your petticoat. Mister, you may conquer the air, but the birds will lose their wonder, and the clouds will smell of gasoline.'" Times change. People stay the same. Our circumstances change. People respond in the same ways. Things are different than they used to be, sure. Not better, not worse, just different. Never be afraid to stand in the way of so-called progress. That's your decision. Go ahead, learn as much as you can. This is your only chance to do so. And be wary of anybody who claims to be fighting the people on top on behalf of the people on the bottom. Hierarchy will always exist. There's a good chance that they know this and they just want to be the ones on top. And if you want to, but only if you want to, really, consider making peace with God. You don't have to be a Christian like me, but look. All religions are equally invalid. Wait, did I say that wrong?
To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. Thanks for watching.